All right, let's dive into a massive debate that's happening in the software world, microservices. Are they this magical key to scaling infinitely, or are they actually a trap for new companies? Today, we're going to explore why being a little boring with your architecture might just be the smartest thing a startup can do.
Okay, let's just get this out of the way right up front. This is probably the most important thing to remember. Say it with me. You aren't Netflix. So much pain, so many bad architectural decisions, they all come from forgetting this one simple fact.
So how does this whole madness even start? Well, you can probably picture it. You're at a tech conference, right? And an engineer from some huge, famous tech company gets up on stage and they show you something absolutely mesmerizing.
And this is the dream they're selling. A beautiful, incredibly complex web of hundreds of services, all deploying thousands of times a day, just humming along perfectly. It looks like the absolute peak of engineering excellence, and you can't help but think, wow, I need that for my startup of 5 people. And that right there, that is the seductive lie that has cost so many companies so much time and money.
The core of the issue is this. Startups get obsessed with solving problems they just don't have yet. Your problems today are about survival. You've got to find customers who love your product, you need to ship features faster than your competitors, and you absolutely cannot run out of money. But instead, you're building for some hypothetical future where you have 10 million users. You're basically building the foundation for a skyscraper when all you really need to do right now is get a lemonade stand open.
Yep. Choosing microservices isn't some free lunch. It comes with these built-in hidden costs. Let's call it the Microservices Tax. And you pay this tax in 3 different ways: latency, data consistency, and just sheer brain power. Let's break down what that actually means.
First, you've got the latency tax. Now, in a simple, single application, a monolith, when one piece of code needs to talk to another, it's just a function call. It's instant, happens in nanoseconds, and it's rock-solid reliable. The second you switch to microservices, that simple call becomes a network request. It's literally thousands of times slower, and here's the kicker, the network is guaranteed to fail at some point. So all of a sudden, your engineers aren't building features anymore. They're spending all their time writing plumbing code, things like retries and circuit breakers, just to make the system not fall over.
And this next one, this one really hurts. It's the consistency tax. See, when you have a single database, you have this amazing superpower called an ACID transaction. It's a rock-solid guarantee that a bunch of operations either all happen perfectly or none of them happen at all. Your data stays clean. But the moment you split your data across a bunch of different services and databases, poof, that superpower is just gone.
And just look at what that trade-off looks like in practice. On the left, in the monolith, you've got a simple, bulletproof transaction. It's 4 lines of code. It just works. On the right, well, that's the microservices equivalent. You're dealing with events, message queues, multiple services that have to coordinate, and you have to write all this complex logic to undo things if one part fails. You've literally traded 4 lines of simple code for what could be weeks of complex, bug-prone engineering work. It's madness.
And finally, there's the DevOps and cognitive tax. The complexity just explodes. You don't just have one app anymore. Now you need Kubernetes and a service mesh and distributed tracing and centralized logging. The list just goes on and on. All of a sudden, your developers have to become infrastructure experts just to get a simple bug fix out the door. The mental overhead to keep all of this in your head is just enormous.
Let's make this really concrete. Imagine a critical bug hits production. In a monolith, it's pretty straightforward. You check the logs, you find the error, you fix the line of code, you deploy. Done. Maybe it takes 20 minutes. In the microservices world, though, it's a whole detective novel. You're hunting for the error across 5 different services, trying to piece together a distributed trace, checking the network. A simple fix can turn into a 4-hour nightmare involving multiple developers.
Now you might be thinking this is all just theory, right? But it's not. There are major, very successful tech companies who paid this tax, realized it was a huge mistake, and then did something shocking. They moved backward. They went from microservices back to a monolith. Let's look at a couple of examples. Okay, first up, Segment, a super successful company. They went all in on microservices, running over 150 of them, and their engineers were basically drowning in complexity. A single page load would trigger dozens of slow network calls. Deploying code took hours, and trying to debug a problem across 10 different code bases was a nightmare. So what they do? They took a deep breath and merged it all back into a single monolith. And the results? They were absolutely staggering. I mean, this isn't some tiny improvement. Their developer productivity shot up by 40%.
Their infrastructure costs dropped by nearly a third, and their deployment time, it was cut by a whopping 75%. These are game-changing numbers, and they got them by making their architecture simpler, not more complex.
You know, people always love to bring up Amazon as the poster child for microservices. But here's the thing, they have this story completely backward. Amazon became a billion-dollar behemoth running on a giant monolith. It was only after they had thousands of engineers and were facing truly unprecedented scaling problems that they started to carefully break things apart. They won the game with the monolith first.
And if you need one more powerful dose of reality, just look at Stack Overflow. These guys serve 5,000 requests every single second. That is a massive amount of traffic, and they do it all on a simple monolith with just a handful of servers. It's incredible proof that you can get massive scale and performance without all the crazy overhead of a distributed system.
Okay, so if jumping into microservices too early is the problem, what's the solution? Does it mean we're stuck with just one giant, messy ball of spaghetti code? No, not at all. There's a much more pragmatic approach that really gives you the best of both worlds.
It's called the modular monolith. And the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. You keep the operational simplicity of a single application. You deploy it all at once, you run it as one thing. But inside that application, you enforce strict, clean boundaries and organization, just like you would with microservices.
So what does this actually look like in code? It can be as simple as your folder structure. You organize your code into these clean, logical domains, or contexts. And here's the golden rule. Code in one folder, like your order context, is forbidden from directly calling or importing code from another, like the billing context. This simple rule enforces separation and keeps your code from turning into a tangled mess as it grows.
When you actually look at the trade-offs side by side, the right choice for a startup becomes crystal clear. With a modular monolith, development is fast, debugging is easy, and changing things is cheap. You're just moving folders around. With microservices, every single one of those activities becomes slow, hard, and incredibly expensive.
So when is it the right time? Look, this is not about never use microservices. It's about not yet. So here's a pretty practical checklist. Do you have more than 50 engineers all trying to work in the same code base? Are your build times getting unbearably long? Is one tiny part of your app getting 100 times more traffic than everything else? Do you have some kind of strict security need for one component? The rule of thumb is, if you can't check off at least 2 of these, you're not ready.
You know, this all really boils down to what you choose to measure. True success isn't about having the coolest, most complex architecture diagram to show off on your blog. It's about real-world outcomes. So stop focusing on these vanity metrics, like how many microservices you have or how many lines of YAML you've written. The metrics that actually matter are all about speed and stability. How fast can you get a new feature into the hands of a customer? How quickly can you fix a bug when it pops up? How much value did you actually deliver this quarter? Those are the things that build a real, successful business. The legendary computer scientist Donald Knuth famously warned us that premature optimization is the root of all evil. Well, it turns out that premature distribution, splitting your app into services before you have to, is an even bigger, more dangerous trap for a young company. It's the same fundamental mistake, just amplified across an entire network.
So we'll leave you with this one question to think about for your own projects. Is your architecture helping you deliver value to your customers faster? Or has the architecture itself become the goal, a monument to complexity that's actually slowing you down? The answer to that question could really be the difference between success and failure.